My name is Robert Hayes. For 7 years, everyone in the building knew me as the janitor, the old guy with the mop, the man who emptied trash cans, the guy nobody looked at twice. What they didn't know was that I owned the entire building. And when the company's new CEO publicly humiliated me in front of 300 employees, he unknowingly signed his own termination papers. Sometimes the most powerful people are the ones nobody notices. Before I tell you what happened, let me know where you're watching from. And if you've ever been judged because of your job, your clothes, or your background, you're going to enjoy this story. It all started when a young executive named Ethan Caldwell became the new CEO of Caldwell Technologies. The company occupied 18 floors of the office tower I owned in downtown Chicago. I had purchased the building 15 years earlier through Hayes Property Group, but very few people knew that. After selling my manufacturing business for hundreds of millions of dollars, I got bored with retirement. I didn't want golf courses, I didn't want yachts, I didn't want fancy parties. What I wanted was to observe people. So twice a week I put on a janitor's uniform and worked inside my own building. Most people never noticed me. The good ones did. The bad ones revealed themselves eventually. Ethan Caldwell revealed himself on his first day. I was mopping the lobby floor when he walked through the revolving doors surrounded by assistants. He couldn't have been older than 32. Custom suit, luxury watch, perfect haircut. The kind of confidence that comes from inheriting success instead of earning it. As he approached the reception desk, his assistant accidentally dropped a stack of folders. Papers scattered everywhere. Without thinking, I knelt down to help. "Leave it," Ethan snapped. I looked up. He wasn't talking to his assistant, he was talking to me. "I've got it," I said politely. "No," he replied. "I don't need the cleaning staff touching confidential documents." The receptionist looked uncomfortable. I simply nodded. "Of course, sir," he smirked. "At least someone around here knows their place." Those 6 words told me everything I needed to know. At least someone around here knows their place. Most people think arrogance appears suddenly. It doesn't. It leaks out in small moments, in comments, in assumptions, in the way people treat those they think can affect their lives. Over the next few months, I watched Ethan carefully. He never greeted security guards. He ignored receptionists. He spoke to maintenance workers like they were furniture. One afternoon, I was changing a light fixture outside the executive conference room when I overheard him talking to several senior managers. "The problem with this company," Ethan said, "is that we've become too focused on employee feelings." The managers exchanged nervous looks. "We spend too much money on support staff." One manager cleared his throat. "Support staff are important to daily operations." Ethan laughed. "Come on, Michael. If the janitors disappeared tomorrow, we'd hire new ones next week. Let's not pretend everyone contributes equally." The room laughed politely, the kind of laugh people use when they're afraid not to. I quietly finished replacing the light and walked away. Not because I was offended, because I was learning. A few weeks later, something happened that changed everything. The company announced a massive cost-cutting initiative. Employees were nervous. Rumors spread quickly. Layoffs, department closures, budget cuts. Then came the email. All maintenance staff, custodians, security personnel, and cafeteria workers were required to attend a mandatory meeting. I arrived wearing my janitor uniform and sat in the back row. More than 80 employees filled the room. Many had worked in the building for decades. Some looked terrified. Ethan walked onto the stage. "Let's get straight to the point," he said. "The company has become bloated." The room went silent. "We are eliminating unnecessary expenses." An older security guard named Frank raised his hand. "What does that mean for us?" Ethan smiled. The smile didn't reach his eyes. "It means the company is focusing resources on people who create value." A murmur spread through the room. Then Ethan said the words that would cost him everything. "You people need to understand something." He pointed toward the audience. "You're not the reason this company succeeds." Silence. "The executives create value." More silence. "The engineers create value." A pause. "But janitors, security guards, cafeteria workers." He shrugged. "You're replaceable." I watched the faces around me. Some looked angry. Others looked embarrassed. A few looked close to tears. Frank slowly stood up. He was 67 years old and had served in the military before working security. "Sir," he said quietly, "I've worked here 22 years." Ethan looked annoyed. "And?" Frank nodded. "And I've never seen a leader talk to people like that." The room froze. Ethan stared at him. Then he laughed. "If you're unhappy, Frank, retirement is always an option." A few executives chuckled. Frank sat down. I looked around the room. Nobody spoke, nobody moved, and that's when I made my decision. 24 hours later, Ethan Caldwell was sitting in a boardroom staring at documents he never expected to see. Documents proving that the office tower, the company headquarters, the executive suites, the conference rooms, and the parking garage all belonged to one person, the janitor. And the emergency board meeting was just getting started. 24 hours later, Ethan Caldwell was sitting in a boardroom staring at documents he never expected to see. Documents proving that the office tower, the company headquarters, the executive suites, the conference rooms, and the parking garage all belonged to one person, the janitor. And the emergency board meeting was just getting started. The following morning, I arrived at the building at 6 a.m., wearing the same janitor uniform I had worn for years. Same faded work boots, same gray maintenance shirt, same mop cart. Nothing looked different, but everything had changed. The previous evening, I had called an emergency meeting of Hayes Property Group's board of directors. Unlike Ethan, I believed leadership meant listening before speaking. So before making any decisions, I reviewed 6 months of reports, employee complaints, turnover statistics, customer feedback, maintenance records, security logs. What I found was disturbing. Employee turnover had increased by 40%. Customer satisfaction had dropped. Several senior engineers had quietly submitted resignation letters, and nearly every complaint mentioned the same person, Ethan Caldwell. Arrogance is expensive. The problem is that arrogant people rarely pay the bill themselves. Everyone else does. At 8:15 a.m., my phone buzzed. Board members have arrived. Perfect. At 9 a.m., Ethan was scheduled to present his restructuring plan. He had no idea another meeting was about to interrupt his morning. At exactly 8:55, I pushed my mop cart into the executive elevator. The receptionist saw me and smiled. "Morning, Robert." "Morning, Sarah." Unlike Ethan, Sarah always remembered people's names. The elevator opened onto the executive floor. As expected, Ethan was standing outside the conference room with several vice presidents. The moment he saw me, his expression darkened. "What are you doing up here?" I stopped my cart. "Cleaning the hallway, sir." "This floor is occupied." "Yes, sir." He rolled his eyes. "Then clean quietly." One vice president looked uncomfortable. Another stared at the floor. Nobody said anything. That was part of the problem. Bad leaders survive because good people stay silent. I nodded politely and continued down the hallway. 5 minutes later, Ethan entered the conference room. 10 minutes after that, the meeting began. At 9:20, the doors suddenly opened. 3 attorneys entered. Behind them came 4 board members from Hayes Property Group. The room immediately went silent. Ethan looked confused. "Can I help you?" One of the attorneys smiled. "Actually, we're here to help you." "What is this?" The attorney placed a thick folder on the conference table. "Notice of lease review and executive conduct investigation." Ethan frowned. "What are you talking about?" "The building owner has requested an immediate review of your leadership conduct and potential violations of lease agreements." The executives exchanged worried looks. "The building owner?" Ethan asked. "What does that have to do with us?" The attorney smiled again. "Everything." At that moment, I walked through the conference room door, still wearing my janitor uniform, still holding a clipboard. Several executives looked confused. Ethan looked annoyed. "What are you doing in here?" Nobody answered. I quietly took a seat at the head of the table. Ethan blinked, then blinked again. "That's not your seat." One of the attorneys spoke. "Actually, it is." Silence. Ethan laughed nervously. "What is this? Some kind of joke?" "No," said the attorney. "This is Robert Hayes." Another pause. "Founder of Hayes Property Group." The room became completely silent. "Owner of this building." Longer silence. "Major shareholder in Caldwell Technologies." The silence became absolute. Ethan's face lost all color. "What?" I folded my hands calmly. Good morning, Ethan. For several seconds, nobody moved. Nobody breathed. Nobody spoke. Finally, Ethan found his voice. You're the owner? Yes. The janitor? I enjoy staying busy. The vice presidents looked like they had seen a ghost. One whispered, Oh my God. Ethan stared at me. No. I nodded. Yes. But why? Because people reveal their character when they think nobody important is watching. The room remained frozen. I opened a folder. For 7 years, I've worked in this building. I looked around the table. I've cleaned offices, fixed leaks, changed light bulbs, emptied trash cans. And during that time, I learned something important. Everyone listen. The most honest way to judge a person is to watch how they treat someone who can't help them. Nobody said a word. I turned toward Ethan. Would you agree? His face was red now. Mr. Hayes, if I've offended you, this isn't about me. I interrupted gently. It's about leadership. I slid several documents across the table. Employee complaints, another stack. Resignation letters, another stack. Customer satisfaction reports. The pile continued growing. Every executive watched in silence. Ethan, do you know how many employees have left since you became CEO? No answer. 143. I let that number settle. Do you know how many specifically mentioned your behavior? Still no answer. 89. A vice president quietly closed his eyes. The numbers were worse than anyone expected. I continued. Yesterday, you told maintenance staff they were replaceable. Ethan swallowed. You humiliated a security guard who served this country? Silence. You openly mocked support staff. More silence. Then I leaned forward. Tell me, Ethan. He looked up. Who opened this building every morning during the snowstorm last winter? No answer. The security team, I continued. Who kept the generators running during the power outage? Still silence. The maintenance department. I looked around the room. And who cleaned every floor during the pandemic so your executives could work safely? The room knew the answer. The janitors. Nobody moved. I nodded slowly. Seems like those people create quite a bit of value after all. One executive quietly began clapping, then another, then another. Within seconds, the room erupted into applause. Not for me. For every employee who had been treated like they didn't matter. Ethan looked completely stunned. The board chairman finally spoke. Mr. Caldwell. The applause stopped. The board has reviewed the evidence. He slid a document forward. Effective immediately, your employment as CEO is terminated. The words landed like a hammer. Ethan's eyes widened. What? Your leadership has caused significant financial and reputational damage. This is insane. No, the chairman replied calmly. What is insane is believing you can build a company while disrespecting the people who make it function. Ethan stood up. You can't fire me. The chairman raised an eyebrow. We just did. Ethan looked around desperately. Nobody defended him. Not one person. Because respect can't be demanded. It must be earned. Within 30 minutes, security escorted Ethan from the building. Ironically, Frank, the same security guard Ethan had mocked the day before, walked beside him. Frank remained professional, polite, respectful, exactly the things Ethan had never been. As the elevator doors closed, Ethan looked at me one final time. I said I was sorry. I nodded. I know. Then why isn't that enough? The elevator doors paused. I answered honestly. Because apologies fix mistakes. A pause. But character fixes behavior. The doors closed, and just like that, he was gone. 3 months later, Caldwell Technologies had its best quarter in 5 years. Employee turnover dropped dramatically. Customer satisfaction recovered. Several former employees returned. Frank received a company leadership award. The maintenance department got raises. And every year since then, the company celebrates Employee Appreciation Day. Not for executives, not for managers, for everyone. Receptionists, janitors, security guards, cafeteria workers, everyone. Because a company isn't built by the people at the top. It's built by the people who show up every day and do the work nobody notices. As for me, I still wear my janitor uniform twice a week. I still push my mop cart through the hallways. I still empty trash cans. Not because I have to, because it reminds me of something important. Titles impress people. Money impresses people. Power impresses people. But character? Character reveals people. And if there's one lesson this story teaches, it's this. Never underestimate someone because of their job. The person you're looking down on today might be the person who gave you the opportunity you're standing on tomorrow. And if you've ever been judged because of your work, your background, or your appearance, remember this. Your value is not determined by someone else's assumptions. It's determined by who you are when nobody's watching.